Have you ever felt stuck at a decision point? Like you're staring at your bank account, wondering how to stretch what's left, or sitting in the aftermath of another argument, trying to figure out how to hold your family together. You've prayed, you've pushed, you've tried to fix it, but the weight of uncertainty still presses down, leaving you wondering if there's any way forward. Here's the good news. The clarity you're looking for isn't out of reach. God is ready to guide you. James 1 says it like this: "If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt." Clarity isn't about figuring it all out yourself. It's about trusting the God who already has the answers. It's the kind of faith we see in David. When everything around him seemed to crumble, David turned to God and found not just the wisdom he needed, but the courage to step forward in faith. But that faith wasn't born out of ease. It was forged in the fire of devastation. When David and his men returned to the city of Ziklag, they were expecting home, safety, rest. But instead, they found ashes. The place they built, the place they loved, was burned to the ground. Their families, wives, children, taken captive. Can you imagine it? The sight of smoke rising on the horizon, the pit in your stomach as you realize something's wrong, and then the crushing weight of the moment, you understand just how much you've lost. It was the loss of everything he was fighting to protect. It broke David and his men. The Bible says they wept aloud until they had no strength left to weep. Can you imagine? These were warriors, battle-hardened men who had faced enemies and seen bloodshed. Yet here they were, on their knees, sobbing uncontrollably. And maybe you felt that too. It might not look like Ziklag, but the devastation feels the same. Like the weight of your circumstances has drained every ounce of strength you have. There are days when you feel like you've cried all the tears you can, yet the ache in your heart remains, and you hit the breaking point. But David didn't let his despair have the final say. Right there, in the ashes of Ziklag, surrounded by sorrow and the pressure to give up, David turned to God. Instead of rushing into battle, he paused. He asked God two simple yet profound questions. Should I pursue this raiding party? Will I overtake them? And God answered him, saying, "Pursue them. You will surely overtake them and succeed in the rescue." Look at that. God didn't just tell David to act. He gave him a promise. A guarantee that David wouldn't just catch up to his enemies, but that he would recover everything that was lost and succeed in the rescue. That's the kind of clarity that doesn't come from panic. It comes from pausing long enough to hear from God. Maybe you've been in a place where the pressure to act feels overwhelming. The voices in your head scream, "Do something, fix it now." But here's the truth. Clarity doesn't come from chaos. It comes from seeking God. Before you make that critical choice, whether it's about your family, your finances, or your future, pause and take it to God first. This way you're not just asking for advice, you're aligning your actions with His promises. And when God directs your steps, you can move forward with confidence, knowing the outcome is already in His hands. When David set out to pursue the enemy, not everyone could make the journey. Some of his men were too exhausted and had to stay behind. But David doesn't give up. He keeps going. Sometimes, like David, you'll have to make the decision of leaving behind those who can't continue the journey with you. That's hard, but God is faithful to bring others into your path, people who will point you toward the victory He's already planned for you. And then something unexpected happens. Along the way, they come across an abandoned Egyptian servant, someone left for dead, discarded by the very enemy David was pursuing. But instead of passing him by, David and his men stop. They give him food and water, and as the man recovers, he becomes the key to their victory. He tells David exactly where the enemy is, guiding them to the very camp where their families are being held. Now think about that. What seemed like an interruption turned out to be divine intervention. What looked like a coincidence was God's careful orchestration. And maybe you've experienced that in your own life. You're in the middle of your journey, tired, unsure if you can keep going, and then someone crosses your path who changes everything. It's not luck, it's God aligning your steps, even when you can't see it yet. So, never overlook someone along your path. They may hold the key to your victory. When David and his men finally reached the enemy's camp, it wasn't an easy win. The Bible tells us that from dusk until the evening of the next day, they fought. But here's the remarkable part. Even in their exhaustion, not a single thing was lost. Everything that had been taken was restored, completely. God didn't just promise recovery. He delivered full restoration. The wives, the children, the possessions, everything the enemy tried to steal was returned. And maybe you need to hear that today. You might feel like your relationships are too broken to be healed. Or maybe it's your finances, your career, or your confidence that feels shattered and it seems like there's no way back. But let me remind you, what you've lost is never too far gone for the reach of God's redeeming hand. The key is to pause, seek Him, and trust Him. When you're standing at a decision point, unsure of the next step, remember this. God's clarity doesn't come after the battle. It comes when you trust Him to lead the charge. When you lack wisdom, ask Him. Believe without doubting, and He will provide the direction you need. It won't always be easy. The battle may be long, but here's the truth. You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't need to see the whole plan. You just need to trust the one who holds it. So today, whatever you're facing, pause and turn to God. Seek Him, trust Him, and take the step He's calling you to take. Faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about taking the next step, even in uncertainty, knowing that God's wisdom will guide you to the victory He's already prepared. God bless you.